Hello, and my name is Pete Rushmer, and I'm your host today of A Half Dozen Things podcast. A Half Dozen Things is a podcast for business owners just like you. Whether you're an underdog hungry for success, or you're already smashing it but want to continue to level up, we are here each week for you to get insight and learning from the very best in the business. No fluff, no BS, and no self-proclaimed gurus talking about how easy business or life is.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Half a Dozen Things, and another episode where I've been handed the keys to the microphone and the unlock code for the camera. My name's Mike Vickers, and I'm going to be your host today on Half a Dozen Things, where we're going to be talking about, and I don't want you to reach for the off button just yet, we're going to be talking about the green agenda, and the green agenda and what it means to operators of heavy goods vehicles. Now, okay, let's get the political stuff out of the way first. As I introduce this broadcast, we're at the point in history where the UK is on its third prime minister in what seems the same amount of months. So, and Mr. Sunak, the new PM, had a bit of controversy just for a change. A politician has a bit of controversy. The biggest story of the week wasn't Matt Hancock, the former health secretary, going into the jungle. It was, for many people, it was Rishi Sunak and will he or won't he go to this thing called COP27. COP, what is COP? Okay, COP27, what happened to the previous 26? There's a big one last year in Scotland, wasn't there? And there's been one for the last 26 or now 27 years. It actually means Conference of Parties, and what it is a big jolly for all the green supporting governments in the world to go and chat about the environment. So that's the context of this broadcast. We've got Rishi Sunak, will he, won't he? It looks like now he's going to go. And that kind of sends a message to me really for the haulage industry. Whether we like it or not, and whatever our political views, because it has become a politicized issue, hasn't it? The environment, and whatever our political views are or not on the subject, I think it's fairly evident that the green agenda is going to make a massive impact. One beyond my comprehension, but it's going to make a massive impact on the way that we do business as heavy goods vehicle operators. I think that's what it goes without saying. So we're not that we don't face unprecedented challenges at the moment in our industry. I think those challenges are going to be exasperated by the march towards a greener world. And I think there's not many people in the world that would disagree with the motives for having a planet that is safer and better for everybody. And I love, I'm probably what you'd call an old school environmentalist. I'm not going to go and glue myself to a road anytime soon. I love roads and I love road motor vehicles, and I love aeroplanes, and the faster, noisier, the better. But for me, I love our green and pleasant land, and I'd like it for it to remain green and pleasant. I live out in the sticks. You'll probably see behind me poster of birds on the wall. My partner works for a bird charity. We like to, I'm not a twitcher, but I do like to, I'm going to be careful how I phrase this next bit, but I do like to watch the birds. We all admire and love the countryside and the country that we live in, and we want to keep that as nice as it is now. So I think the sentiments are there. Whichever way you look at it, I think we're all aiming for that sort of stuff. So, in terms of our impact on the environment from a transport point of view, we are a very impactful industry. It's one of those industries that is going to be targeted by the government, and that means by legislation. The road. I'm not going to give you loads of facts. I'm not going to try to do that because I can't remember them anyway. But we are one of the industries that is responsible for a very great deal of the output of pollutants, the CO2, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and all the rest of those things that go evidently to harm the environment. So we are naturally going to be up there as we're going to have fairly big targets on our back. So what I thought we'd do in true to traditional half dozen things fashion, I've weeded out 6 things that I think operators should be aware of or should start making plans for in terms of what, where we're going to position ourselves in the coming few years to help us navigate that tricky road ahead. So I'm going to start with a little bit more. It's not necessarily to do with the green agenda as such, although I think it all kind of ties back when you look at it. And the first thing I want to bring up, number one, is more immediate. It's a more immediate concern, I think, for everybody in the industry. Just been listening to the news downstairs before I came up and did this, and everybody's talking about these power outages that could be upon us as soon as this winter. As soon we're in November now and recording this in early November, so as soon as this winter we could be experiencing power outages. Now I'm a child of the 70s. I remember the 3-day week, which was where we basically only went to school for 3 days a week because there was no power for the other 2 days, and that was due to industrial action from the miners, and the power stations couldn't run, etc., etc. But so it's nothing unusual, it's nothing new. But in this, what difference did it make for us? Not a lot. We didn't go to school. We got a bit colder when we sat at home, and we all had to sit around with candles. And I remember Mum cooking up like soup on a little gas stove, as it were. But if you think about that was in the 70s. If you think about how much we rely on technology today and how much we rely on electricity and power today, it would make a huge impact to the operator. So what I'm just going to go through is a little list. It's no means comprehensive, but operators should be preparing themselves, or at least having conversations around what would we do? How would we continue to... Operators, in any case, should have contingency planning for all sorts of things. I remember I used to work for a transport company, and we relied on all sorts of IT and what have you. We're going back a few years as well. And one day, somebody outside on the road, working on the road outside, dug up a power cable, and we were without power for 3 days, and to try to run it was a £15 million turnover business, 100 and something trucks with no power was a real challenge. So it can happen anytime. So I'm kind of saying to operators, you really should have some sort of contingency planning in place, for all kinds of eventualities. The company I used to work for, we had, I remember a time when the business was shut down because somebody decided to crash an aeroplane on near to our site. We were situated very near an RAF base, and luckily the pilot ejected, but the aeroplane came down very near to us, and somebody came in and shut the site down for security reasons. So a contingency for all sorts of things. But let's think about how this is going to how a power outage or a partial power outage, how would that impact the transport operation? How would we power our IT systems? Because everybody relies on those these days. I mean, absolutely. Your transport management system, your route planning, scheduling software, delivery notes, sending messages to drivers, sending the delivery notes to the drivers, etc., etc. So we absolutely, fuel pumps. But one of the biggest things we found, how are we going to get fuel out of fuel pumps? The fuel pumps have got no electricity to them, so they don't work. So where are we going to get fuel from? We've had fuel on site, and they didn't work. So think about how you might do that. You might be looking, and this goes off track slightly with the green agenda, wouldn't it? But you might be thinking, well, already have a generator, an on-site generator that you can switch to. If you have got a generator, how often do you test it? How often do you make sure that it will run? The switchover period. Look at your IT. How resilient would it be to a sudden drop in power while you go out and into the yard and try to start the generator up that hasn't been started up for 2 years? So kind of think about how those things. How would you as a business? How would you as an operator cope with 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? They're even talking about 7 day. power outages. It may or may not never happen, but if it does, just think about the impact that would have on the business. That comes on to, so number two, again, number two is staying on the theme of planning and strategy. How many operators out there? It's coming, isn't it? We've got the end of diesel and fuel car sales, and I said the word car there deliberately, happening in 2030. That's not very long away. It's not very far away, is it? So, we're not going to be able to buy a new diesel or petrol car. How on earth that is going to work, I have no idea, and I don't think the government do, to be absolutely honest, but it is going to happen, and nobody's come in yet, and in a political party and said we're not going to, there are one or two on the periphery, but it's unlikely that they're ever going to get anywhere near to Westminster. So the mainstream parties are all of this belief. So right, okay, that's not going to affect trucks. We know that trucks are not, you can't build an electric truck now. That there are some on the market, there's some coming through, I know that, but we're not going to be able to suddenly switch off 500,000 HGVs, 44 ton, 32 ton tippers, that type of thing, and convert over to electric overnight. So, but we need to start thinking about how that's going to impact on a business and our planning for the future. Procurement wise, we all know how difficult it is to get a new truck. The problem with this diesel and petrol cars disappearing is that the companies, the big manufacturers, have stopped investing in research and development when it comes to new petrol and diesel products. So that will have an impact on everybody in the truck industry later on down the line. That research and development, those companies spend millions and billions of pounds on research and development. That's all going to stop. They're not going to research and develop fuel, carbon fuel vehicles, because they're not going to be allowed to sell them. So that's going to impact on us, and that is also going to impact as they ramp up, as these manufacturers ramp up production of electric or hybrid vehicles or alternatively fueled vehicles, should they come along, then that's going to impact on the bread and butter stuff that they're trying to build today. I spoke to somebody not so long ago from, it's difficult to say without saying who the company is, I'm going to be careful, shall we say a breakdown service, and they are planned. So every year they plan ahead their vehicle requirements, their procurement requirements. They're now planning the 2029 deliveries. So they're looking that far ahead. And I think as a business, as operators, we need to get the crystal ball out and start looking at how we're going to impact on how that's going to impact on us, and how we're going to make sure that we've got these procurement strategies in place, not just for next year or the year up, but years ahead. And where that's going to go. There's a lot of well, what's going to happen? We don't know out there. Could somebody suddenly come up with an alternative fuel? Hydrogen or something of the like. We don't know. At the moment, we're working on the electricity and the hybrid side of things, because that's what we've got available and ready to go almost, and in many cases is going. So plan, have some sort of strategy, going forward in terms of your procurement for your kit, etc., and how we're going to do it. So number 3, then, start small. If we're going to start it small. If you run a mixed fleet, and if you run a fleet maybe with some cars, some management cars or whatever you've got, or vans, particularly really good. I worked for a local authority, and we were early adopters of electric technology, electrical vehicles, very early adopters, and we started very small. We started with the fleet of cars for the people who the officers who work there. So we started with cars. That was the easy place to start. It meant we could learn about infrastructure, and that's important.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're proud to sponsor a Half Dozen Things podcast. Flagship Partners help their clients become safer, greener, and greater through a range of consultancy and training services. We offer audits through to risk assessments, contracts through to support with managing your culture, all the way from mandatory training through to management training as well. So if you need any support, please do get in touch with Flagship Partners today.
Learning about how to use electric vehicles, it may sound very straightforward, but it is you have to approach it in a slightly different way. So starting small with cars made us aware of the infrastructure, charging needs, how things were charged, different equipment that you get for charging, and that kind of thing. So start small, start with cars if you've got cars on the fleet. Vans, absolutely. I mean, there's some really, really great strides are being made in the van world in terms of electric powered vans, and they quite often will have the range to do those urban deliveries. You only got to look at the likes of Amazon, etc., who are going, Tesco's, they're all going down that line, and they're all making, and it's not just something that's going to happen in the future, it's happening now. So just look at those fleets and start small, start small. That will get you into the electric vehicle sort of world. Once you're into that electric vehicle world, the next step, making that next step up to the bigger trucks, that is inevitably going to happen, isn't going to be so hard. So my number 3 then would be start small, and if you get the opportunity, you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's no good because we don't run anything smaller than 44 tons or whatever, but that, that's fine. But if you do have a mixed fleet, try to start small, get yourself into it, get yourself into the world of electric vehicles and how they work and the infrastructure, etc. That may take a bit of planning. Some of the charging, when you're looking at the different charging, and that's something that the industry, the electric vehicle industry, really does need to sort out. Not just the charging infrastructure, but I know people with electric vehicles that have a wallet full of cards to go in each different charging system that they have. I mean, really, that's very complicated. You don't know when you're going to pull into a fuel station, into a service station, or indeed there are available fuel stations now. You don't know. I always think with an electric vehicle, you think, well, how am I going to get this thing charged? What do I need? What system is it on? Who's going to have to? Am I going to have to pay for it? Is it free? So I think that's the industry's challenge, is to simplify that. So start small is number 3. Number 4, drip the drivers, get them into how they can help to reduce your carbon impact or your carbon emissions. Now, again, I promised you I wouldn't go into numbers. This is not what this is about, going into numbers. But have you done a study? Have you looked at your impact? Have you looked at your carbon footprint? People were doing carbon footprint in 10, 15 years ago. I mean, there's lots of tools out there online that will help you. If you haven't already done that, if you don't already understand your carbon footprint from your vehicle emissions, then it's very easy. There's loads of tools online. Have a look at those, and that will get you into a place where you kind of realise where you are with this, and then you can form your strategy. So probably this one should have come a little bit earlier, to be fair. But drivers can play a massive part in this, because if you're using less fuel, then your carbon footprint is going to reduce. So, and it's going to save you a shed load of money as well. Again, I'm not going to band about facts and figures, but if you just think about a modest fleet of 100 vehicles that averages, let's say, it depends what you're running. Just for simple maths, let's say 10 miles to the gallon. If you can improve that by 1 mile a gallon, 10%, which is massive, isn't it? 10% improvement, but it's attainable. If you can improve that by 1 mile to the gallon, just think about the impact that would have on your bottom line. If you're buying, 2 million gallons of fuel a year, or 5,000 litres, whatever that translates to. So because we're talking about numbers and scaling, you'd be absolutely surprised at how much difference that makes to your bottom line, especially with fuel being the price it is today. So also think about things like when you're making procurement decisions around tyres and peripheral equipment that you're fitting on vehicles. Think about the impact that has. Tyre wear, if you're wearing out tyres are a huge impact on the environment, the way they're manufactured. We have to get them to around the world, and not that many manufacturers in the UK, so they all have to be shipped in, etc. Buying a cheaper brand of tyres might seem attractive, but if you're replacing them more often, that's going to have a higher impact. We use a lot of tyres in our industry. So just kind of thinking about those things, and as I say, making the driver aware of their part that they have to play in terms of reducing the fuel. Remember, in the fuel shortages of the early 2000s, lots of supermarket fleets did research on this, and other fleets, of course. But you look at the impact of reducing a lorry from 56 miles an hour to 52 miles an hour. Pain in the backside for everybody, I know. And, everybody hates it. But, the numbers were incredible, the savings. And also, they did a lot of research out there online. They did a lot of research in terms of reducing the speed by 4 miles an hour only impacted the travelling time by a tiny fraction, increased the travelling time, but saved a massive amount on the top line. So I would encourage operators to look at how they do that. Number 5, much more simple, but if we all do a little bit, it will help. How good are we as operators at managing our waste? And looking at what we're actually putting in the waste stream. For me, this is a big one. I like this one. Not saying I don't like the others, of course, but I don't want to see plastics in oceans. I don't want to see the world littered in. We've got a quarry not many miles from here. It's still an active quarry, and I'm just dreading the day that they shut that quarry and decide to make it into a landfill site, because that's But we have to put it somewhere. You can't criticise the operators; they have to put it somewhere. So think about how we as operators have a waste stream. We do have a lot of waste in the industry. Vastly depending on what we do, of course. But we have even something simple like how we, in our office and warehousing and workshops, how we dispose of that waste. Even given drivers somewhere. I know from experience, a lot of drivers, whilst they're fueling, they'll sort out their cab and they'll chuck out all the stuff in the cab. Make sure they've got some nice bins there that they can easily put the different types of waste. And it might sound only a trivial thing, but you'd be surprised how much recycling you can generate from a normal waste stream. And I'm not going to give you the facts and figures, but we are as a society now recycling much more, far more than we ever used to in terms of our day-to-day waste. So that's number 5, nice and simple one, that one. And number 6, and we always promise that these are not sales pitches, but invariably I'm going to mention something that we do and something we can help you with here at Flagship Partners. So the big thing, I think, people understanding this net zero vision. Now, again, all of the major political parties, nobody, and it's going to be one of those things, I know, particularly in this industry, that when it happens, we're all going to sit around and moan about it. But realistically, we didn't do anything about it, because all of the political parties, the major political parties, are on the same path here. So it's going to be inevitable. This net zero, which is what this COP is all about. This COP conference, or governments patting each other on the back and talking about there's a new phrase going around called greenwashing, where they do a lot of talking but don't do much action. But that is going to translate into action shortly. And we talk about net. So what do we mean by net zero? So obviously, from our activities, we create carbon, or we use carbon. We use fossil fuels to create those activities. So what net zero is saying that our impact on the environment will be what it says on the tin, net zero. So if we're still going to use, it's inevitable that we're going to use fossil fuels. Even but people will argue on the other side of this coin. People will argue about electric vehicles and how impactful they are on the environment. The electricity has to be generated somewhere as well, so there's that to take into account. But as I say, I'm not getting into the sort of political side of the debate, but that is a fact, isn't it? So what companies, what businesses and operators are going to have to do, and it's going to be trickier for us in the haulage industry, what we're going to have to do is something called offsetting. So we're going to create carbon, but to get to net zero, we're going to have to offset that creation of carbon by doing stuff that will put back into the environment, if you like, filter the air, if you like. So, and the obvious answer to that is plant trees, and that's because that's what regenerates the whole thing, isn't it? So, we are into at Flagship Partners. We're into something called I can never pronounce this correctly. Ecology. I'll spell it for you just to say if you want to check out the website. ECOLOGI. Ecology. And what ecology is somewhere where you can go and offset your carbon. Now, we are only a very small with a big ambition. We are only a very small business, but in the grand scheme of things, there's 10 of us. We've got an office in Peterborough, and we're in a fantastic training room. But we drive around, and we've got the fleet is now our car fleet is hybrid. I'm very absolutely delighted with my it's a Toyota Corolla, but I'm always looking at, it's a petrol electric hybrid, and there's a gauge which says how much of the journey has been on electric and how much of it has been on combustion engine, on the petrol engine. And I love to get it around about 50%. I always aim to get it around about 50%, which is fantastic. So yeah, we're doing our bit, but we're also a part of this ecology, and we what that means is that we will. I'm going to give these are the only figures I'm going to actually give you. We've been doing it for 7 months now. So for every month we pay in. That sounds like it is costing money. We pay into ecology to offset the carbon that we use. So far, we've managed to offset, and I've got a quote here. That's what I'm looking. 42 tons of carbon reduction, and we've planted, or through ecology, we alone, as I say, 10 of us, one office in Peterborough, we've planted 570 trees. That's to offset our carbon that we put into the world. So we've offset that by planting 570 trees. So that's what they mean by net zero. It's even if you are creating carbon, if you're burning fossil fuels to get to do what you do, you're offsetting that by doing other good stuff. So that's what carbon offsetting is, and I think that's going to become a massive thing, because we're never going to be able to reduce that. That net. If they said absolute zero, there's a difference between net zero and absolute zero, and if we didn't, we can't. We can't produce electricity. We can't produce power to make electric vehicles without creating some sort of impact on the environment. But this is the way that we balance it out through. And finally, the final plug that I'm going to give is what can there has to be a benefit for us as well. It's not all give. You can probably get from the tone of this that it's going to cost operators money, isn't it, to be compliant with and it will, we will start to see laws as well. There already is. We know that there's emissions, Euro 6 and all the rest of it. We will start to see laws coming in now, I think. So, to get to this position we want to be in terms of our impact on the environment, a lot of it so far has been voluntary. There has been some legislation. There will be an increasing amount of legislation. There will be an increasing amount of compliance that operators have to go through. Mark my words, that's a fact. I think we all know that. As I say, all the political parties are signed up to it, so it don't really matter where you put your X in your ballot box. It's going to happen. So what can we do to help you? We can help businesses achieve, all businesses, not just HGV operators. Obviously, our specialism is in the transport sector, but it really applies to any business. We can help you achieve something called the ISO 14001 standard, which is, as the name might suggest, anybody who's familiar with quality management standards, etc. It's another one from the ISO kind of brand of quality management. This time we're looking at the environment and how we help companies meet or exceed those targets. So with a commercial hat on, not only are we doing our bit for the environment, and we can feel very good about it, and we're helping to, by sort of following the quality, the management process in 14001. Not only can we reduce our carbon impact, but there is then a commercial value to it. Those people who are in the business of seeking business from other businesses, and government organisations, government contracts, etc., you're going to see a lot of their procurement pieces are going to go towards, what are your green credentials? And I think if you've got ISO 14001, that's going to open some doors to you. I know it's just another set of hoops we've got to jump through. We've got for start with operator licensing, we've got FORs, we've got earned recognition and all this kind of stuff. But it is a great way of getting forward onto people's tendering sheets, onto opportunities for business, etc. So ISO 14001, if you're interested in that at all, have a look on our website, give us a shout. We're more than happy to help you with that. But we are trying to our aim here is not to, Flagship Partners is not to debate the rights and wrongs and where you want to be on that process, but we're here just simply to cut out all that sort of BS and just help operators navigate their way through this green stuff as best we possibly can, and at the same time, if we're doing some good and helping to keep us a green and pleasant land. So that's it from me. Thank you to Pete for letting me have the controls yet again on half a dozen things. Look out! We're going to change it around slightly in the new year, so look out for some exciting new stuff coming in the new year. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you on the next one.
I really hope you loved today's episode, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe and listen out for future episodes too. Please do share it across your social media channels. We hope to reach more and help more people. If you want to find out more about me, my name's Pete Rushmer. You'll find me across any social media channel and my business, Flagship Partners, and we're your partners in success across your business. Thank you. See you again soon.